listening to the Autism 411 podcast with Dr. Tamara Moodie from the South Florida Autism Charter School.
Welcome to another edition of the Autism 411 podcast from South Florida Autism Charter School. I'm John Rogger alongside your host, Dr. Tamara Moodie. How are you?
I'm well. Good morning, Mr. Rogger. And, today's just a special day. I've always wanted to interview you and your wife on how, just the sacrifices that you guys have both made just to have your children in our school. But before I go ahead and say everything that we're going to talk about, why don't you introduce your beautiful wife that's sitting here with us this morning?
I'd love to. Alongside me here today is my wife, Claudia Rogger. Claudia, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for joining us here.
Happy to be here.
So I met you guys how many years ago?
Gee, what year did we come? Was it 2015 when we came here? I think we got accepted in 2016 for Dominic, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, 2016. So it's been 19, 20, 21, almost 5 years, if not more.
Wow. When you guys moved here, because I know the story about you guys moving to Florida, but what I never really understood is that did you move here because you heard of the school, or did you move here and then you heard about the school?
No, it was because we heard about the school before we moved here. The way to describe it is that, we lived in what's known as Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. It's kind of like a vacation town for folks across the Midwest. And I worked in the radio station down there. And, for the longest time, I've been involved with that place. But then one day, progressing, the kids, we had two kids. We have Anthony and Dominic. But Dominic, started off as kind of a slow learner. He had been in, Claudia had put her, make sure he was in programs that were the early steps.
Yes.
Right. And so he had been getting some therapies just to help him learn because he wasn't talking. And that's when you found out from the doctor that we may need to get a diagnosis.
That's correct. We were on a waiting list for a neurologist, and the nearest neurologist was about an hour away in the next town. And like I said, we were on a waiting list, so I was trying to be proactive. I was pretty sure that the diagnosis of autism was going to be a certain thing. And I was doing my due diligence as a parent, and that's how I came across the school. Okay. I was looking for resources outside of where we were. And since we had lived in Florida prior to that, that's where I looked, because I was, we were comfortable with the state as we had lived there before.
One of the things I remember the most was that, there were options in Missouri where we lived. There were options not in our area. In our city, we'd have to leave. Our community's 10,000 people, and, your standard schools and your standard life, and nobody knows what autism is. And the only special needs program we had, he already aged out of it before we found out he was autistic. And that was the only one in the entire community in the city of Camdenton. And then outside of that, your only resources were, like she said, an hour away in Columbia or in Springfield, and that was the end of it. They had the major cities in St. Louis and Kansas City had all these programs, but everything was private pay.
Wow. And
there was no assistance, with medical services or vouchers. None of that stuff existed in Missouri. It's starting to exist now, but then there was nothing. So when Claudia and I were sitting down talking in our living room, we said, the doctor had told you Dominic had autism, and it was very likely that Anthony had autism as well. And we said, well, we need to go somewhere that we can get help for them. Where do we go? And that's when she found, because we decided to look in Florida, that's where she found Sfax. And that was a great call, because back then we didn't know really what the school was. We just knew that you guys offered a lot of resources, and we said, well, we want to get in. We got to go. And we sold everything. I mean, everything we had to come down here and go. And we kept very little. All of our furniture was gone. And geez, we sold the boat. We sold the jet ski, and sold one of our cars and said, look, let's go.
So how long did it take you to get into Sfax after moving and making that sacrifice?
Well, Dominic, how old was he? He was too young
He was too young when we first got here, but also we had, there was some kind of rule where he needed to go at least 1 year in the public school system here to be recognized, because we were all from, we just transplanted here. But nonetheless, we got here in March 2015, and it wasn't until the 2016, when it was middle. I remember it very, very, very well, because we were in the middle of the day, and I was at work. And Claudia tells me this story that I love it. You got to tell it, because it's just the way that you tell it to everybody is so exciting about how you learned that Dominic got in.
Oh, okay. So I was, I was at home with Anthony. He was still a baby, so he wasn't in school. And Dominic, he was in preschool at this time. And I got a phone call. I was sleeping on the couch, so I answered the call. And it was a parent, a volunteer parent, and she tells me that it's hard to recall the story. It was so long ago, and as I mentioned, I was sleeping, taking a mom nap. And anyway, so I picked up the phone, and the other person on the line, they introduced themselves. They tell me that they're calling from South Florida Autism Charter School, and they told me that my child was accepted. And my initial reaction was of shock, and then I say to the person on the other line, "Oh, so does that mean that we don't have to go through the lottery?" And then she says, "That's correct." And I think I screamed into the phone so loudly that I busted this poor person's eardrum. And I immediately called my husband to tell him that we got in and we didn't have to wait through the lottery.
Well, I'm happy that you guys are here. You guys have been great ambassadors of SFACS, and just the sacrifice that you guys made is so commendable, because I've seen the improvement that Dominique has made in the last several years that he's been with us. And folks who are out there listening, and so once one sibling gets in, the other sibling automatically gets into the school. So I think that Anthony came like a couple of years later.
That's correct, yes.
He came a couple of years late, like 2 years later.
Yeah.
So now they have 2 boys in our school, and I never even realized the amount of siblings that was out there. I've never actually done a lot of research. There's not a lot of research on that to show that there's a great chance that there will be that second child may have autism. So in our school of 260 kids, I believe we have over 20 siblings now. Mm-hmm. We have twins. We have not triplets, but we have like 3 of 3 different age, and we have a lot of 2 that are that's here with us. So you're here, and I am almost sure that you guys had a hurricane. Like, was it you guys that was here for a hurricane?
We've been here for a few hurricanes, actually. We were here for, I think Matthew was one of the first ones that came in when we were here, and we left to go to the other side of the state. And but one of the biggest hurricanes that we dealt with was Irma. And at the time, for when I first moved here, I had taken a job with a friend of mine working in marketing, which is something I know a lot about, but it wasn't my forte. My forte is broadcast. And then over the course of a couple of years ago, I got a call from iHeartRadio, and they said, "Would you like to come work with us at WIOD here in Miami, be in the newsroom?" And I'm like, "Of course, this is what I do." So when I got the job, immediately getting the job, Irma came, and we wound up going and staying the entire weekend in the iHeart building. That was our first experience of being in a hurricane, but being in a building where it's okay to be in a hurricane. And we were sleeping, we brought little like tent cots and stuff, and we slept on the floor in the conference room.
Wow. And
it was so cool. The kids they had all these windows that looked over the whole studio and everything. So they'd get up in the morning and they'd stand outside and wave at all the people coming by, and it was great. But yeah, these hurricanes they're different than what we're used to. In one way, they're actually, for a lot of folks, they're like, oh, it can get really bad. And with Andrew, you can see that it got bad. My grandmother lived here during Andrew, and she lived through it while she was in Homestead. But, where we come from, we have tornadoes. And tornadoes here are like, something just came down from the sky, no big deal. Our tornadoes are 3 times as bad as your hurricanes. And it's just that they're a smaller path. But at the time that we had left, we had experienced, several tornado warnings in our area, with the kids not really understanding what a tornado was or what storms are. It was scary for them, and we didn't know how to communicate with them. So that, leads us back to why it was so important that we needed to get help, because we realized at one point that we're not getting through to them. They were just living.
Yeah. Well, I brought up the hurricane just because we've had several parents who made the sacrifice that you guys made. And I remember one of the first phone calls I get from our parents who are from different states was, Dr. Moodie, this is our first hurricane. What do we do? So I'm happy that you guys, you fared well with the first hurricane that you guys went through here. So let's talk a little bit about, didn't folks look at you guys like you were crazy, like moving to a different state and not even have gotten accepted? What if you guys didn't get accepted right away? What would you have done?
That was a big problem. I remember both of our families, because our families, come from two different sides of the state. My family is all in St. Louis. Her family is all in Kansas City. And I remember both of them asking us, what are you doing? Why are you leaving Florida? Even my boss, who I worked for, was like, do you really need to go to Florida to get resources? I mean, there's other places. Nobody quite understood what we realized. I'm going to tell you the truth. It's not me at all. It's literally Claudia, because she realized how important what the mission of your school was and where it landed our children for their future. The more she researched, and the more that you had found out, that, children on the spectrum, they have a hard life for the rest of their life. And if you don't set them up right, then you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, as John put it, it was a gamble, and I decided to just go at it, just put our all into it, kind of like an all or nothing. And sorry. Anyway. Sorry.
No, I know it's a tough subject when you think back on the sacrifices and the friends and the family that you were leaving behind. Yeah. I can see your hesitation, and that's okay, because I don't know if I could have done the same thing, like going to a place that I'm not sure if it's going to be the place or if my child is even going to be accepted, because you took a gamble not knowing if your child would even be accepted.
Yeah, it was a hard decision to make. But we didn't have as much of a family support as one would want in this situation. So it didn't feel like so bad leaving them behind, because we knew that we were alone in this. And so it was just us and the kids. And, when you're a parent of even a neurotypical child and they're starting school, you start to envision all these things like, oh man, I wonder if they're gonna be an athlete. And then you move on to college. You just think of this you envision your child's entire future in an instant. So us as special needs parents, we're actually no different. And it was important, at least to me, that our kids went into an education system where they would actually thrive and have a fighting chance. And since Sfax is a K through 12 and has so many programs that help the students even after they graduate, that was just a huge selling point for me, and it was worth it.
And you just said something about if they're going to, how we talk about if our children are going to be athletes. Well, one of the beauty about SFACS, if you dreamt that Anthony, I could see Anthony being that athlete.
Oh, yeah.
We do swimming, we do tennis, we enter the Special Olympics. There's just so much. Because one of the things that I've always said, when creating the school, was that every single thing that my neurotypical children at home experience, all my students at SFACS has to be able to experience too. So I would say that is something that's never going to change. I think it's extremely important that the community realize and that folks out there realize that our kids are not deaf. They hear everything. They're not blind. They see everything. I feel like they're more sensitive to certain things that we're just not around, that we're not aware of. I think they're a lot smarter than sometimes we give them credit for. And that's why it's so important to me. And I'm happy that you felt the same way, that you wanted you wanted to think about the future. And I think that's what I love about SFACS too. The fact that we're K-12, we're going to be starting our early childhood program pretty soon, that we're going to be able to take our children in as early as 6 months. And who would have thought if I had gotten Anthony or Dominic at 6 months, where they would be now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
So we're going to start taking kids at as early as 6 months. And then after that, we're going to be taking kids, we're going to be keeping them until I haven't made a decision yet on what age group we're going to end. But we have a 22 and older program. And I feel like the kids who have been with me for the long run is where I've seen the most improvement with them and the most progress. And I don't know, tell me about what you've seen that's different with the boys. I can say that because I can sit here and honestly know that I've seen tremendous improvement with them. And there's still so much, we have a long way to go still, right?
Oh, yeah.
And kind of like, so let us know like the improvement that you've seen or lack of, or things that they're still struggling with, because I'm sure there's still things that they're still struggling with. And let me say this to our listener, I am at work. So if you hear the phone ring or someone knocking on my door, I'm working.
Yeah, we do these podcasts in real time.
Yes.
You're hearing everything.
You're hearing everything. So I apologize in advance. But for me, it was important that we weren't locked up in a private room doing this. I am still the director of this program and I still need to be here. And I wanted to make sure that every experience that's shared on this podcast was experience that I've either lived through or my parents have. So again, I am so happy that you're both here. I respect the sacrifices that you guys both made for both of your children to be here, because I know it couldn't have been easy, even though, Claudia did say, we've lived here before, but Florida changes at the drop of a hat. I'm sure it has changed. But tell me, what are the changes that you've seen with your boys since you've been in school? How has SFACS supported you all? Because honestly, I believe I'm constantly questioning myself. Am I doing enough for the parents? Am I giving you all the support? So I need to know, just for my own personal growth, like, what have you seen with your boys and how have we supported you and what could we do more of?
That's a lot to ask.
Because you know what, I want folks out there who are thinking about doing an SFACS.
Yes, of course.
To know that it's possible, right?
Yeah, but it's more than just a school. And the SFACS is a family. It's a community. It's a learning situation. There's so much to it. You can't just call it a school. Claudia, I think one of the biggest things that we noticed. Let's talk about the kids first, and then we'll talk about us as and how the parents' situation works. But Dominic talks. Dominic didn't talk before he went to SFACS.
That's right.
That was, he didn't say a word. All he said was his noises.
Yeah, he would make the typical noises that you would hear coming from someone with no communication and is on the autism spectrum.
And not only that, but he's also started to improve with the ability to respond to commands and requests, and he now asks for things on his own. These are all things that he wasn't doing. And mind you, he was in school. He started school at the age of 3 in Missouri, and he was in a special program in Missouri, and through that, plus the special program in Broward County when we first moved here, there was no improvement.
Right.
And we had therapists, and there was no improvement. And when we got into SFACS, I kid you not, 1 year later, Dominic had tremendous improvement.
Yeah, that's correct. He wasn't even eating at school.
No, he wasn't.
I would send him his lunch, and I would also send in money so he could get something from the cafeteria if he didn't particularly care for what I was sending. And he just wasn't eating while he was in public school.
No.
But then after he started at SFACS, a couple months into the school year in kindergarten, he started eating, and then his appetite just blew up, and he
eats everything now. He loves everything. Pizza and chicken nuggets, of course. Every child with autism loves chicken nuggets. But
I think that's the beauty of SFACS as well. There's no more than 9 students per classroom, and there's 3 adults. There's a certified teacher and 2 assistants. We eat together. The teachers eat with the kids all eat together. So a lot of our students who came to us not eating, after a while they get so curious, because I love to say Florida is like a melting pot of cultures. So within the classroom, there's all these different cultures being represented. So our kids get curious. We are located in Hialeah, but we also have a big island. We have like Haitian American, Jamaican American, Americans, so there's a big group of different cultures that's represented here, not only with my staff, but with our student. So I think our kids get curious, and that's probably why, because we don't have a lot of our students who have difficulties with trying different things. And the ones that do, we usually would do the eating program, but I'm happy that he wasn't one of them that I had to do an eating program with.
Yeah.
He's just curious.
We'll probably have to do that with Anthony, though. He won't eat anything but French fries and pancakes.
But Anthony is Anthony, and that's another thing. They have 2 boys in the school, and they're day and night.
Oh my God, yeah.
Every time I call Anthony's name, I don't know if those of you guys listening from the outside, I have a little bit of giggle in my voice because Anthony.
He is adorable, isn't he?
That he is, and he knows it. But yes, so I'm happy to see that you've seen improvement with Dominic. What about Anthony?
His improvement, there's been a little bit of improvement, yeah. He has made the improvement in grasping how to do things, like, whether it's picking up something or moving something. And when you request him to do it, he does it, and that's been in working with his ABA therapist have also helped him with that as well. But the school reinforcement from that has been very well. And that's one of the big things about this school is you guys, you send us, the teachers send us an email and say, this is what we're working on with your son. That allows us to tell the ABA therapists who are at our house, this is what they're working on at school. And it allows us to know this is what they're working on for us to do at home. And by doing that trifecta where all of us are working in the same harmony, it really helps them to learn something. Anthony has made improvements in that. Anthony's a bit of a different case, though, because Dominic's issue is he has autism, and that's all there is to it. Mm-hmm. Anthony has a lot more issues. Anthony has epilepsy. He has ADHD. He has, some other cognitive issues. He's very smart, extremely bright, and you can see it because he will go through phases where he learned his ABCs in no time. He's forgotten them, but he remembers them. He knows his colors. He knows what he's doing, but he gets wildly upset. And, we had to get him on some medication. And then once we got him on the medication, he calmed down. The biggest thing the psychologist that we see said about him was that he's just very anxious and very hyper, and that caused him to not want to, progress forward. But now that he's calmed down, he's back to learning things again. You can see it already. He just this morning, we were doing a bike day here at the school, and he doesn't know how to ride his bike. He's got a new one. He doesn't know how to ride it. He just sits on it, but he loves it so much that he literally wouldn't get out of the car until they brought the bike around the front of it. Mm-hmm. So that's how much he loves that bike. So
I mean, again, our kids are snowflakes, right? Mm-hmm. There's no 2 that's alike. And even within the household with the same DNA, they're never going to be the same. But I think one of the things that I've said to parents over the years, and some parents like when I say it and some parents don't appreciate when I say it, is that our kids were going to be whatever they were going to be, right?
Right.
Yep,
Autism doesn't stop us from seeing the personality. And some kids are okay. Not that, let me be careful how I say this. It's not that I think that some kids are okay having autism. I believe some kids can tolerate having autism, and some kids don't like feeling the way they feel. And I think with both of your boys, I think Dominic is just a little bit more mellow. So he's okay. You throw it at me, I'm just going to take it and go. Anthony is the one that, I enjoy. Not that I don't enjoy Dominic, but Anthony keeps me on my feet. He makes me think about the decisions I make as a principal, as a director, because he's just not going to take it.
Yeah.
I have this personality, like he was going to be that kid in class that says, I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that. Or I'm sorry, I don't like that. Or I don't understand. You got to explain it to me in a different way. Much like my neurotypical child at home, he questions everything.
Yeah.
And Anthony has that. And it's okay, because with that, you're going to see, once he knows how to communicate his needs and want in the way, and see that, okay, if I do it this way, I get this, you're going to see so much improvement with him that it's going to be mind-boggling to you. You're going to be like, oh, when did he just get that? Because he has that personality.
I totally agree. And another thing that you had brought up was, parents and how do we receive help? A while back in the podcast here, Claudia had mentioned we didn't receive much assistance from our family. That's one of the reasons why we moved. To clarify it, it wasn't that they didn't want to help, they didn't know what we were talking about. They never heard of it. The only person in our family who had heard of autism was her mother. And that's because Claudia's sister is an adult with autism. And they found out about her autism years after she had been around, and no one knew what was wrong. It wasn't like, 4 years old, So that was known there, but the rest of the family were like, oh, they'll come out of it. That's your typical family response. Oh, they'll come out of it. They're going to be better. Yeah. And we knew that wasn't the case. So we said, well, we better make a decision and come here. Well, when we came here, Dr. Moodie, we had no friends. We had our old friends that we had, hung out with, and they came and visited. But as time went by, that went away because they're like, we're so absorbed with taking care of our children. And our children would absorb us. We couldn't go out. We couldn't have a party. We had no one to watch them. Before you guys implemented the respite service, right? We didn't have anything that we could do. And it was so challenging, so difficult not knowing anybody. And it's taken us years, and we still don't know anybody. I mean, we know a few folks, a few families here, but do they hang out with us? Not really. We just kind of talk on social media, and that's about the end of it. But the resources that the school has given us has made a tremendous difference, because now we're able to use things like the respite program for the two of us to maybe just go somewhere or do something. And that's something that, again, when you look back at our history, and I know you would say this, Claudia, when we were sitting in our house in Missouri, we said, what are we going to do? We can't go anywhere, can't do anything. We can't leave them with someone. They can't have a daycare. None of this is going to work because they can't communicate.
Right. Anyone who was dealing with our kids had to be extremely skilled and qualified, which was non-existent where we were.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, my family, your grandparents, and my mom and dad tried to watch the kids for us. And as time has gone by, they realized they can't. My dad flat out said, I know I can't watch them because, Anthony, he's strong. He can do all kinds of, and then Dominic is sly. That kid knows how to open the door without letting you know he opened the door, and he goes right out the front door. And they're both elopers. Although I will give them credit, they haven't eloped in many, many years.
Let's knock on something.
Please. Because we've held that one together, but it's been so stressful because it's not just one, but it's two kids with autism, and it's not just us. We're by ourselves basically for what we can do. My family does try to throw some money at us to help us out. Her family does the same, but we really are all alone, and we had to let go of everything we had to come here. And on top of that, racked up a tremendous amount of debt making the move as well. It's not cheap. People think, well, that couldn't be that bad. Look, a house in Missouri is $196,000. That's a 4-bedroom house. A house here, if you want to buy one, is $500,000. Yeah. So, even our rent was, when we first got here, was so incredible that we wound up racking up so much that we ran out of credit cards. We've ran out of money. We fought. We've had to change jobs because the job wasn't enough money to even survive. It's been a tough ride, but we don't want to. The same thing we tell each other over and over again. We miss our small town. We miss our mid-sized town. We miss the Midwest. We miss, our mountainous range, or our hiking, or taking our time out in the wilderness and having fun. But doggone it, we are not leaving, because these kids are in the best place that they can be. This is the only home for them, and there's nothing like it in this country. And I know that if the most important thing for a special needs child is that they have something set up for their future when we're not around, I know that she made the right choice by picking this place, because I feel the vibe from you guys that I can trust my kids are in good hands no matter what happens to us.
Yeah, when I say that in training, that you guys aren't going to be around forever, so just build your village. And even if you don't have a village, get the school to be your village, because we're here for you. You brought up something about not being able to date and not being able to do certain things. Well, that's one of the things that we're doing differently this year. My focus this year is on family. How can I build the family? How can I get the family to realize that they need each other, right? Every so often you need to not think about autism. So we're going to be doing some date nights here, that we set up the school for date nights for the parents, and we take the kids maybe on one floor while you guys are downstairs. So we have all these ideas. We're going to make sure that you guys have your date night. Not sure how we're going to pull it off just yet. We're going to have sleepover here too, with camping in the cafeteria. And you're right. If you guys aren't strong, if you guys aren't in a good place, then the kids aren't gonna they're not going to be, and they can feed off of that, and they can see it, but I have to take my hat off to your dad. I've seen him a couple of times dropping off the boys. Angela, you're there with him anyways.
Yeah,
but at least he's taken that drive, and he's been to some of our fundraising event. And I take my hat off to that. I really, when we see the family trying, we have to, because they don't know. This year, one of the things that I'm going to do, and I hope you could get your folks to join, is that I'm going to be doing a grandparents training. I typically focus on the siblings, but I feel like it's good to get the parents involved, because I know my mom hurts for me when things aren't going my way. So I can just imagine your parents who hurt for you when they feel like you are not getting the support, or are not being able to give you what you need, right? So I'm going to see if I can give them the tools that they need to support their children more, and in supporting their children more, they'll be able to support their grandchildren. Is there anything like, if a parent is out there listening and they're thinking, my town don't have something like this, I want to move, to come to SFACS. Well, I want to say this: don't move to come to SFACS. But what you should do is probably send us your resume, send me an email. Maybe I can help you find resources. We do have some space for some kids, and we've been getting phone calls from all over the world, just to have their children in our school. And I, thank you for all the folks that's been doing that, but it's a great sacrifice, and you have to, you guys got lucky by getting in a year later, but I've had folks who've been waiting to get into the school now for a while, and they have not been able to, because there's something about the IEP that does not give them the ability. So if you're listening and you're thinking, I'm in another state and I want to come to SFACS, your child's IEP has to say autism.
Yeah, that was a difficult hurdle to get over, and it was, I had to go to various meetings, and I kept it cordial. I kept calm, but it was hard. It was hard.
She's a superstar. Let me be frank with this. When it comes to bringing everything together, I helped her do that. But when it comes to making sure that they had what they needed, that was her. She fought with the schools. She fought with the insurance companies. She spent a day on the phone with Medicaid demanding that they give her a different policy, because what we had was not covering ABA. So I
had to file a grievance in order to get out of that policy.
Yeah.
I'm like, to the person on the other line, my child, he needs help. And what is going to help him is applied behavioral therapy, and you do not cover it. I need to get out. And it was just a whole mess.
It was crickets.
Yeah.
But to folks that are listening, if you want to come here, here's the things you need to realize. This is something that, as from a parent who has moved to come here, it's different if you lived here. The people that lived here have resources. They have their families. They have their friends. They've lived here. They know the cost of living here. They make the money to live here. If you come here from another state, and especially one that's not like New York or Los Angeles, in those cities, where you've already started making that kind of money, the people that come here, you got to know that the rent is really expensive. And I mean, I'm not kidding you. For a 2-bedroom apartment, the cheapest that we were able to get was $1,700 a month. That was that's almost $700-800 more than we were paying for a house. So you got to know that the expense to living here is expensive, and the jobs don't pay as much as you would think. And that's the most important thing. If you think you're going to come here, you're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to spend a lot of savings. And then you have to wait. You're going to have to wait to get in, because the school is growing. Like you said, we got lucky we came when we did, because we may not get here if we tried to go now.
Yeah.
If there was anything that could be done, I would love to see more schools like this around the country. I've often told Claudia, I said, I wish Dr. Moodie could franchise this so that people could open it up with the same, like a McDonald's, the same thing. It's exactly the same.
My board and I have thought about that, but come up with a presentation and present it at one of our board meetings.
I might have to do that.
It is, I feel like the way how we've built it, we've made it our fundraising efforts and everything. We are able to be replicated, and I would love for us to be able to one day. I feel like every state should have an SFACS, right?
Yeah.
And I also want parents to know that's listening, if you're local or if you're in a different state, we're not babysitters. We don't watch your child.
That's right.
We teach your children, and there is requirements to be here.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm going to teach your child how to use the restroom, you're going to have to teach your child to use the restroom. Folks, listen to me talk, and I'm smiling because I love my job, and you can't take that away from me, but I work hard every single day for every single student here. I know every single student's name, and I know every single student, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, how to get them to do things, because I make that my priority. But I also make sure the parents know that I can't do this on my own. The teachers can't do this on their own. And John is sitting here. He knows they come to my trainings. I do over 40 trainings a year, and I expect parents to do at least 4 of them. We do fundraiser. If it moves, Dr. Moodie sells it. What that means is that I am not afraid to roll up my sleeve and fundraise. I fundraise every single day. I'm constantly thinking, what can I do to make sure that we have the best? And guess what? Our kids right now have the best building. This is an awesome building.
You can't compare to this building.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, again, and when we saw your vision online, because you had it posted online way back then, we knew you could see this. And I think that's a lot of the reason why there's folks that do make that effort to come here and wait, because there is nothing like this in the country. There's nothing where it's not just a school. It's a school that, is going to train your kid. It's ABA based. It's, so they're getting therapy while they're getting trained, while they're getting lessons. They're not learning about, the huge level stuff that we grew up with in school, but they're learning life skills, things that we need to know how to do laundry, how to go to the bathroom instead of having to wear a diaper. And not only that, but we know that the resources are there for us. You guys are helping us. You're giving us input, things we need to do, and assignments.
The trainings,
yeah.
the respite.
Well, the most important one is the involvement. So many parents with children with autism, and it bothers the heck out of me, don't get involved. They just like you said, you're not a babysitter.
Right.
The kids have got to have that parental backing. We as parents have to do just as much as the teachers do, as much as the therapists do, because our kids know if we're not doing it, we can get by with whatever we want, because they're not stupid.
John and I are big proponents of that. We work like a train. All the carts are linked together, and that's how the train is able to move through the tracks smoothly and get to where it's supposed to be. So if we are expecting our kids' therapists to do something that the teachers are doing, so meaning that they are receiving at school, we have to do it too.
Yeah, generalization of the things that we do here is important. And being able to do it in a natural environment is even more important. I can teach your kids to set a table at school, but that's not typically where it's done.
Right.
So if when they go home, it's being done in the home setting, you've just generalized, can you imagine, when I use this word, sometimes parents get, oh God, Dr. Moodie, I can't believe you just said that. But we want to be able to set our kids up that they're not a burden.
Right.
To anyone else in life, right? Because of course we're gonna do what we need to do because we're parents, but that doesn't mean that auntie or uncle or the best friend that you assume is gonna take your child is gonna do the same thing.
Exactly.
This is why we need to make them as independent as possible. We need to be the one to teach them these things so that when we're no longer around, they're as independent,
You just, you brought up a really good point, and something that you mentioned to me yesterday, Claudia. We know a lady that has an adult with autism, and she has a friend who is going through a scenario right now because they just weren't prepared. What was the situation behind that?
I believe it was on the topic of guardianship and having a special needs trust set up for your special needs child, which is something that you do handle down the road. And SFACS does provide trainings on that. So that's another really cool thing in how they help the parents is through these community trainings.
And I do a
community
training
workshops.
on that every single year. And recently, with my generosity of my board, I was able to hire a social worker that's going to be working really closely with the parents and being to provide them with these resources even more on an intimate way, because I do bring in lawyers and I do bring in folks. And you said a lot later on. Now, guardianship is later on, but
but it starts
special
now.
needs trust is like right now.
Yeah, you can set it up now. Yeah.
But it's important, guys. It's just like, if you're not doing a prepaid college fund, you should be probably looking at the special needs trust, right?
Yeah.
And again, this podcast is just really to inform you. I will be hoping in the near future, I'll be bringing in someone that will be able to talk about special needs trust, someone that will be able to talk about guardianship and SSI and all these different resources that the Roggers have just spoken to you about that we have at SFACS. Because I just feel like, why reinvent the wheel? If your school or your community is not providing with these resources, SFACS is here for you too. We want to be able to share what we know with everyone, because at the end of the day, I just feel like these, it shouldn't just be bottled up and stay at SFACS. It should be spread.
Yeah.
It should, everyone should have a University of Miami Nova Card Center. That's important. Everyone should, be on the Autism Speak website. Everyone should, just see what you can get from all these people.
Oh, yeah.
And again, you can always visit us at www.sfacs.org and you can get information on our trainings. Right now, they're going to continue to be on Zoom for a little bit more. So folks can log in from wherever they are and to be able to join our training, because they'll be posted on our website. And if you want more information, feel free to contact us at info@sfacs.org, and I'll be glad to be able to share this information with you. The Roggers here are sitting down. They all have my cell number. If your child is in our school, I give my cell number to every parent. Fortunately, I can't give it to folks all over the country, because then, what happens
You'd
when
never
you do that? I'll
stop
never
getting
stop
calls.
calling. But if you had to end with some advice to parents who are sitting down right now, found out that their child got diagnosed, and they don't know, like, what do I do first? Do I find a neurologist? Because I know if a parent asks me, I say build your village, right? But as parents, I could say whatever I want to say because I'm the outside looking in. But what would be the first thing? Is there anything that you did that you wish you did differently? I just realized that every time I ask you guys a question, I add 4 other things.
It's all right.
But if you could do something differently, or if you like what you did, what is that one thing that you can tell that parent right now that just left their neurologist or their pediatric, their child's doctor, and they just got the diagnosis and they don't know what to do?
All right, so the person who's going to tell you to take your first step is your pediatrician. They're going to probably refer you to a neurologist, and that is who you would go see secondly. When we had Dominic diagnosed, and he was diagnosed with autism, the neurologist came up to me, and she sat across from me, and she asked me if I was okay. So apparently, a lot of parents, I guess typically for her, after they get the diagnosis, they break down, which is totally fine. I mean, we're human. And it's a lot of emotions to take in one day, especially getting a diagnosis like that. And what she did was, she asked me if I was okay, and I said, yes, I'm fine. And she put down this big, thick, encyclopedia-looking binder with all these pages in front of me and said, look for resources, and sent me on my way. So that's the first thing I did, was to look for resources. Dominic had a verbal deficit, so he couldn't communicate with me. So that obviously is the root of almost everything, is to be able to communicate with someone else, your wants and your needs, fears, etc. So I looked for a speech therapist, and we were able to get one, and she did come to the house. But that's where we stalled and wound up here in South Florida. So I guess my advice to someone who receives that diagnosis: sit down breathe. It's going to be okay. But you have to keep going. You have to keep moving. And you can't be afraid of what the future holds. Don't give up.
I would have to agree with that. My thing would be to tell you that, look, you need to breathe for a minute, and you need to hear what's happening. It's going to hit you hard. As a father, I was hoping to have neurotypical kids. I wanted to go sledding. I wanted to go camping. I was an Eagle Scout. I wanted my kids to join the Scouts. That stuff, when I was talking to the doctor, they said, no, none of that's going to happen. Sorry. And I went several years believing that never was going to happen, and it hurt tremendously, because I looked at it as like my life's over, everything I wanted to do is over, and I'm going to be caring for this special needs kid for the rest of my life. And then one day I stopped and I said, you know what, this is wrong. These kids are just as great as any kid. They're my kids, and I love them, and you know what, they can do great stuff. And you know what, the more they learn, the more I help them learn, the closer I'm going to get to taking them on that sled ride. The closer I'm going to get to going on that camping trip with them. Because guess what? They can do it. They can do it. I can't tell you enough that just because your kid's been diagnosed with autism, it doesn't mean that they're gone. It means that they're just different, and they're not bad. And there are cases that, these kids can sometimes be really, really tough, and it's really, really difficult. But that's where, as Dr. Moodie said, you need to build a village. You need friends. You need folks. You need family. You need people who understand what autism is. Not your old buddy who goes down to the bar and drinks with you every night, because he's going to talk about old times and make you go crazy. Mm-hmm. You need someone new who knows autism, a family member who can give you some comfort when he says, you had a bad day. I know I've had my bad days too. So don't give up on your kids. Give them strength. Stand with them. Don't let them go. Don't think negatively about them. They're good kids. And one thing I love the most about knowing my kids are here with me and they have autism? I'm watching as family members and friends of mine have neurotypical kids who are causing chaos. And I mean, they are in trouble with everything. And my kids are over here learning how to ride a bike. I celebrate every little thing that they do at 10 years old that Dominic does. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't care how far behind he is. He's making me smile. And I know I'm not going to have to worry about him getting into drugs. I'm not to worry about him driving a race car at 500 miles an hour, which is not really, on the street. I know that my things with him are going to be probably even more exciting than I thought they were going to be when I was wanting to have kids. So don't freak out. Don't freak out. Just love your kids and move forward.
And I will end by saying, because you both summed it up, it's not a sprint. It's a long distance race. So pace yourself. Pace yourself. Thank you guys for being here. Gosh, we could continue talking for another hour. It's just great to talk to parents, to see and just kind of remind me why I do the things that I do. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure your story is going to touch someone, when they listen to this. And if anyone would like to talk to, are you guys willing to respond to any emails that anyone may want to talk to you directly?
Definitely.
Only if they're offering to take me out.
Babysit.
We would definitely love to be able to do that.
Yes.
We consider it a privilege when we can help others.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fun, Dr. Moodie. And it's kind of odd, ending the show like this, because I'm actually, with you on this as a guest. But this has been the Autism 411 podcast. And again, if anyone wants to reach to Dr. Moodie, that email address?
It's DR. Actually, no, I'm not giving you my email address.
Right.
It's info@sfacs.org. That's info@sfacs.org. And feel free to just email us, and one of us will get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, feel free to follow us on social media. You can see some of the wonderful things that Rogger spoke about, us at the Special Olympics, all the different events that we put on. Let us know how you feel about the things that we're doing. And again, like he says, he would like to see us franchise into like a McDonald's. If you have any question in your state, and just to hear how we started this, we have no problem sharing again. It doesn't make any sense to reinvent the wheel. We're here, and we would love to be able to help all folks, not just folks in Florida or folks that's at South Florida Autism Charter School, but anyone who has a child with autism, anyone who's just, newly being diagnosed, or anyone who has an older child and never knew there was resources out there. We'd love to be able to help you. And feel free to go on our website at www.sfacs.org and you will see the trainings.
Sounds very good. Dr. Tamara Moodie, this is the Autism 141 podcast from South Florida Autism Charter School, and we'll be back with another edition soon.
This has been the Autism 411 podcast with Dr. Tamara Moodie from the South Florida Autism Charter School. To learn more, visit sfacs.org.